According to the UN, the population of people 60 or older worldwide will be 2 billion by the year 2050. With populations aging in nearly all countries, there has been concern about the potential effects on economic growth and on the ability of countries to provide support for their elderly populations. In particular, because the elderly are in general less productive than the young folk, a large population of elderly individuals would seem to suggest that economic growth will be slower than it has been in the past, and that the future working class will have to deal with the burden of caring for the massive current working class. These concerns are especially prevalent in China. More than 30% of China's population is expected to be age 60 or older in 2050. Due to a labor force that is large in size relative to the retired population, is plausibly crucial to rapid economic growth. The decline of this ratio could result in economic difficulties. The sources of population in China boil down to a low fertility rate, rising life expectancy, and the past changes in birth and death rates. In China, the decline in the fertility rate, brought about mostly by the one-child policy and government efforts leading up to its adoption, have been a central factor in the changing age demographics of the Chinese population. Although the policy has recently been lifted, its consequences still greatly impact China as a country. Because this issue poses such a potentially large problem to China, it is necessary to find a solution. Many countries and individuals have identified policies that may rein in the potential economic problems associated with population aging. These policies raising the age of retirement, encouraging more savings, facilitating work for those caring for children, allowing more women to work, freeing up immigration, and giving more incentives for education. One viable option for China to curb the aging population would be to raise the legal retirement age. This would increase domestic consumption and allow the Chinese economy to take greater advantage of the growing elderly population. However, this probably wouldn't sit well with the elderly population. The pros may outweigh the cons as China's problems become more and more desperate, however. Despite the fact that education remains a top for a lot of Chinese families, there is still a large section of the population where basic education isn't even close to guaranteed. Improving the education and skill level of Chinese workers could help make the economy even more productive and hopefully combat the imminent drop in numbers of working-age citizens. In the short run, increasing the human capital that the labor force brings to the production of goods and services is an easy way to spur an increase in productivity, which is the key factor to raise incomes. Strengthening education is the main way of making the working population more skilled and diverse. In the long run, the most promising path for China to dodge the consequences of a rapidly aging working class is to mobilize the portion of its workforce that is being underutilized. This reserve workforce could be a great asset in offsetting the effects that an aging population would have, and let China continue its impressive growth in GDP, which currently sits at 10.3 million US dollars and is steadily rising. China has only recently begun to utilize its female population as part of its workforce. This could be another demographic that China could exploit to counter its aging population. The agriculture industry also employs many more workers relative to output than other countries. China would benefit enormously by a large shift of workers out of agriculture and into other sectors of the economy. In an economy where the middle class is growing quickly and benefits from a high demand for its exports, labor will be in great demand. An increase could draw more people into the workforce. These workers could be from any of the demographics mentioned before. In addition, the selection of products that are produced will be affected by demand. If hundreds of millions of elderly need something, the economy will produce it. However, the problem still exists that not nearly enough young workers will be there to produce what is necessary for the elderly. A lack of workers leads to a decrease in aggregate supply, which in turn can cause price inflation and a decrease in real GDP and output simultaneously, so this obviously cannot be ignored.
As the population ages, it will of course be necessary to devote more resources to the care and health of the elderly. Several policies and ideas need to be implemented into the Chinese society to help the population and the economy as a whole. Pension coverage is an area in which government action would benefit the elderly. Rural areas in China lack this key element of social protection. China will have numerous options on how they want to construct a financially viable vet pension system, and China will benefit from studying the experiences of other countries' pension systems. China, like many of its neighbors, benefits from a strong system of family responsibility through which the elderly can count on extensive support. Population policies are also important. If China goes away from its one-child policy, the working size will increase and less of the elderly population will be working. In addition, such easing would be effective in balancing the highly skewed ratio of men to women in the country, which is the result of selective prenatal abortions and the neglect of girl babies. This neglect of girls prevents millions of men from marrying, which in turn leaves them without the support of a spouse or grown children. In avoiding any economic problems stemming from population aging, current government effort to spur economic development in the non-coastal region provinces may also be important. The Chinese economy as a whole will benefit, and regional economies will be better suited to provide care to the elderly population if the interior provinces are mobilized to be more productive. China's economic growth is expected to gradually slow down in the future in comparison to the fast pace of its economic development from 1978 to today. Population aging will not be the only cause. Nearly all countries, as they develop, experience a significant slowing in economic growth, and rapid growth generally happens in countries only with small low income levels. Therefore, China's growth is likely to moderate as the country moves toward a higher level of income with the economic gains the country has already made. In the end, population aging is unlikely to cause significant economic problems for China. Its highly productive economy is full of skilled workers and those seeking to join the labor force. There is little prospect of a lack of workers leading to a marked slowing of growth in GDP or GDP per capita. Nevertheless, policy reforms in education, health, pensions, labor policy, and internal migration could help make China's economic future all the more secure.